My brother ran away from his own wedding as fast as he could, and you'd do the same if you discovered, at the altar, that your fiancé had betrayed your trust in the worst possible way, by inviting our mother, a woman so toxic we had to cut contact to survive. What should have been the happiest day of his life turned into an emotional war zone. And it all started with an invitation that never should have been sent. Hi there. I'm Emily, 34, a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma and family systems. Ironic, right? Sometimes I think my career choice was inevitable given my childhood. Let me take you back to where this all began. Growing up in our house was like walking through an emotional minefield. You never knew when something would explode. Mom was the center of our universe, not because we wanted her to be, but because she demanded it. Every conversation, every decision, every celebration had to revolve around her needs and feelings. My father, my older brother Luke, my younger brother Sam, and I learned early on that our emotions were secondary, sometimes even irrelevant. The first clear memory I have of understanding something was deeply wrong was when I was 8. Dad had taken us for ice cream after school, a rare treat. When we came home, Mom was waiting at the door, her face contorted with rage. "Where were you?" she hissed at Dad. "Who were you with?" Dad, always calm, explained we'd gone for ice cream. He offered to show her the receipt. She slapped it out of his hand. "You think I'm stupid? You're teaching these kids to lie to me too." That night, she smashed all the dishes in our kitchen, one by one, while we huddled in the living room, watching cartoons with the volume turned up so we wouldn't have to hear the destruction. Dad just sat with us, his arm around my shoulders, telling us everything would be okay. It wasn't okay. It was never okay. Mom's jealousy consumed our household like a fire, burning away any sense of security or normalcy. If Dad worked late, he was cheating. If he mentioned a female colleague, she was his mistress. If he took a phone call privately, he was plotting to leave. The divorce happened when I was 10. Luke was 12, Sam only 7. Mom had finally pushed Dad too far, accusing him of having an affair with our school principal, a woman he'd met exactly twice at parent-teacher conferences. The allegations became so public, so humiliating, that Dad had no choice but to leave to preserve what was left of his dignity and career. The courts granted Mom primary custody. This was before her more extreme behaviors became impossible to hide. We saw Dad every other weekend and 2 weeks in the summer. Those brief respites were like coming up for air after being held underwater. Mom's behavior worsened after the divorce. Without Dad there to absorb her rage and suspicion, she turned it on us. Luke, as the oldest, bore the brunt of it. He looked like Dad. Same warm brown eyes, same gentle manner, and Mom couldn't stand it. "You're just like him," she would say, her voice dripping with contempt. "Sneaky, dishonest, waiting for your chance to betray me." Luke was 13 when he started spending more time at friends' houses, coming home only to sleep. I couldn't blame him. I would have done the same if I'd had anywhere to go. Sam, the baby, became Mom's favorite, at least temporarily. She doted on him, called him the only one who truly loves me. It was a dangerous position to be in. Mom's favor was fickle and came with impossible expectations. When Dad met Catherine 3 years after the divorce, things escalated to a level we hadn't thought possible. Catherine was kind, steady, and clearly adored Dad. They dated for a year before getting engaged, and during that time, she made every effort to connect with us kids. Mom found out about the engagement through the small-town grapevine and showed up at our school, causing a scene so disturbing that the administration called the police. She was escorted off campus, screaming that Dad was replacing us with a new family, that we'd be forgotten. That night, she sat us down in the living room. "Your father has chosen that woman over us," she said, her voice eerily calm. "Over you. I'm the only one who will ever truly love you." None of us responded. We'd learned that engagement only fed the fire. The wedding was small, just family and close friends at a lakeside venue. Mom wasn't invited, but she found out the details anyway. She showed up halfway through the ceremony, disheveled and clearly intoxicated. "How can you do this to your children?" she shouted as security led her away. "How can you pretend we never existed?" I still remember Dad's face, the anguish, the embarrassment, the quiet resolve as he apologized to everyone and continued with the ceremony. Catherine held his hand the entire time, her thumb stroking his knuckles in a gesture so tender it made my heart ache. Despite Mom's best efforts, Catherine became a source of stability in our chaotic lives. During our weekends with Dad, she taught me to bake bread, helped Luke with his science projects, and read Sam the same bedtime story 5 times in a row because it was his favorite. When Catherine was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years after the wedding, Mom told us it was karma for stealing another woman's husband. I was 15 by then, old enough to recognize the cruelty for what it was. I told her she was being horrible. She slapped me across the face and didn't speak to me for a week. Catherine fought hard, but the cancer had already spread by the time they caught it. She died 11 months after her diagnosis, with Dad by her side and the 3 of us kids in the waiting room, holding hands and praying to a God I wasn't sure I believed in anymore. Mom refused to let us attend the funeral. "Why would you need to go?" she asked, genuinely confused. She wasn't your real mother. But Catherine had been more of a mother to us in those few years than Mom had ever been. We missed the funeral, but Dad held a small memorial service for us the next weekend when we were with him. We each placed a flower on the lake where they'd been married. I chose a daisy, Catherine's favorite. For the next few years, we walked on eggshells around Mom, trying to avoid setting off her explosive temper or triggering her persecution complex. Luke escaped to college at 18, choosing a school on the opposite coast. I followed 2 years later, selecting a university just 30 minutes from where Luke was studying. Even with scholarship money, I took out substantial loans rather than accept Mom's financial help, which always came with suffocating strings attached. Sam had it hardest, left alone with Mom for 4 more years while Luke and I built our new lives elsewhere. He developed severe anxiety, calling me late at night when Mom was on one of her tirades. I'd stay on the phone with him for hours, talking him through panic attacks, promising it wouldn't be forever. When Sam finally graduated high school, Dad helped him find an apartment near the community college in his city. For the first time in years, all 3 of us kids were free from Mom's daily influence. That freedom came at a cost. Mom's behavior escalated as she lost control over us. She showed up uninvited at Luke's graduate school apartment, causing such a disturbance that campus police were called. She sent me dozens of emails daily, alternating between vicious accusations and desperate pleas for reconciliation. She called Sam's workplace so often that he nearly lost his job. It was Dad who finally suggested we consider cutting contact completely. "I know she's your mother," he said during one of our Sunday dinners, his voice heavy with the weight of the suggestion. "And I would never tell you what to do. But sometimes, for your own well-being, you have to step away from people who continually hurt you, even if they're family." Luke was the first to make the break, changing his phone number and email address without telling Mom. I followed a few months later, after Mom showed up at my therapy practicum site, telling everyone I was having a mental breakdown and needed to be hospitalized. Sam held out the longest, trying to maintain some relationship with Mom. He'd meet her for lunch once a month, always in a public place where her behavior might be somewhat constrained. But even that became unsustainable when she started showing up at his apartment at all hours, demanding to be let in, accusing him of hiding things from her. By the time I was 28 and finishing my doctoral program, all 3 of us had been no contact with Mom for at least a year. It was painful. There's no roadmap for grieving someone who's still alive but too toxic to keep in your life. We each dealt with it differently. Luke threw himself into his career, working 80-hour weeks at a prestigious engineering firm. I went to therapy, confronting the trauma that had shaped so much of who I was. Sam struggled the most, cycling through periods of guilt and relief, sometimes questioning if we'd made the right choice. And then Sam met Daniela. They met at a coffee shop near the architectural firm where Sam had recently started working after finishing his degree. Daniela was vibrant, confident, and utterly charming. She swept into Sam's life like a summer storm, bringing energy and excitement after years of emotional drought. When Sam introduced her to Luke and me during a weekend visit, I was cautiously optimistic. She laughed easily, asked thoughtful questions, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know us as Sam's siblings. But something about her intensity reminded me of Mom, the way she dominated conversations, the slight edge in her voice when Sam expressed an opinion different from hers. "She seems great," Luke said afterward, but I caught the hesitation in his voice. "But," I prompted, "I don't know. Something feels familiar." "Not in a good way." I nodded, relieved I wasn't the only one who sensed it. "Let's give her a chance." Sam seems happy. And he was happy, happier than I'd seen him in years. After 6 months of dating, he and Daniela moved in together. She decorated their apartment with bright colors and bold patterns, a stark contrast to the muted tones Sam had always preferred. but he seemed to embrace the change, telling us he needed more vibrancy in his life. It was during their housewarming party that the first real warning sign appeared. Someone asked how Sam's family was, and he mentioned having dinner with Dad the previous weekend. Sam's family situation is complicated, Daniela interjected, placing a proprietary hand on his arm. His mother has some mental health issues that make relationships difficult. Sam stiffened beside her. We had an unspoken agreement never to discuss Mom with people outside our immediate circle. It wasn't shame, it was self-preservation and privacy. Later that night, I overheard them arguing in the kitchen. "You had no right to bring up my mother," Sam said, his voice tight. "I was just being honest," Daniela replied. "Everyone has family drama. It's nothing to be embarrassed about." "I'm not embarrassed. I'm private. There's a difference." Daniela's voice softened. "I'm sorry, babe. I just hate seeing you cut off from your mom. Family is everything. You don't understand what it was like. Maybe not. But I know what it's like to regret not making peace before it's too late." I slipped away before they realized I was listening, but the conversation stayed with me. Daniela hadn't just crossed a boundary. She'd dismissed it entirely, as if Sam's experience with our mother was a simple family drama that could be resolved with a heartfelt conversation. Over the next few months, Daniela continued to press the issue. She suggested family therapy, sending Sam links to articles about reconciliation. She framed her insistence as concern, telling Sam she just wanted him to be whole again. "Daniela thinks I should reach out to Mom," Sam told me during one of our weekly phone calls, just to check on her. My stomach tightened. "What do you think?" "I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if we were too harsh." "Sam, she stalked you at work. She showed up at your apartment at 3 a.m, screaming that you were hiding other women there." "I know, but Daniela says all moms get a little crazy about their kids sometimes." I closed my eyes, counting to 10 before responding. "That's not a little crazy. Sam, that's dangerous, unstable behavior. Has Daniela ever actually heard the stories? The real ones, not the sanitized versions?" There was a long pause. "I've told her some things. She thinks I'm exaggerating." And there it was. The red flag I couldn't ignore. Daniela didn't believe Sam's lived experience. She thought she knew better than he did about his own trauma. Despite our concerns, Sam proposed to Daniela on their 1-year anniversary. She said yes, of course, and immediately threw herself into planning an elaborate wedding, something Sam had specifically said he didn't want. Just a small ceremony, he had told us. Maybe at Dad's lake house, with just family and close friends. Instead, Daniela booked a historic church downtown, created a guest list of over 200 people, and selected a reception venue that cost more than Sam made in 3 months. When he expressed concern about the expense, she assured him her parents would help, making him feel like he couldn't object without seeming ungrateful. Luke and I watched from the sidelines, increasingly worried but careful not to overstep. This was Sam's life, his choice. We'd both had failed relationships that the other had warned us about. Sometimes people need to learn their own lessons. 2 months before the wedding, Sam called me, his voice shaking. "Daniela wants to invite Mom to the wedding." My blood ran cold. "What? Why?" "She says it's not right to get married without my mother there. That I'll regret it someday." "Sam, you haven't spoken to Mom in years. Having her at your wedding would be disastrous, and you know it." That's what I told Daniela, but she thinks I'm being dramatic. She says all families have issues, and weddings are a time to put them aside. I took a deep breath. This isn't about putting aside issues, Sam. This is about your safety and well-being. Mom isn't just difficult. She's destructive. You cut contact for very good reasons. "I know," he said quietly. I told Daniela absolutely not. She got really upset, said I was being selfish. The conversation left me deeply unsettled. I called Luke immediately afterward, and we agreed to meet Sam for lunch that weekend to discuss the situation face to face. Over sandwiches at a quiet cafe, Sam looked exhausted, the dark circles under his eyes reminiscent of our childhood days when Mom's rages would keep us all awake. "Daniela doesn't get it," he admitted, pushing his food around his plate. "She comes from this picture-perfect family where everyone gets along. She can't imagine a mother being as harmful as ours." "Have you considered postponing the wedding?" Luke asked gently. "Just until you and Daniela can get on the same page about these fundamental issues." Sam shook his head. "Everything's paid for. Invitations sent. It would be a disaster." "Not as much of a disaster as having Mom there," I pointed out. "She won't be there," Sam said firmly. I've made that clear to Daniela. She's unhappy about it, but she's accepted it. I wanted to believe him, but something in his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced of his own words. As the wedding approached, Sam seemed increasingly stressed. Whenever I asked about the preparations, he'd change the subject, focusing instead on work or asking about my latest research project. It was the same avoidance tactic he'd used as a kid when things with Mom were particularly bad. The night before the wedding, we all gathered for the rehearsal dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown. Daniela was radiant, moving from table to table, charming everyone with her effervescent personality. Sam stayed close to Luke, Dad, and me, nursing the same glass of wine all evening. "You okay?" I asked during a quiet moment. He gave me a wan smile. "Just nervous, I guess. Cold feet?" He hesitated just a fraction too long before shaking his head. "No, not at all. Just a lot of people, you know. You know I've never liked being the center of attention." I squeezed his hand. "It'll be over before you know it. Then you can disappear on that honeymoon and not talk to anyone for 2 weeks." That got a genuine laugh from him. That's what I'm holding on to. The rehearsal went smoothly. Dad would walk Sam down the aisle, a non-traditional choice that Daniela had initially resisted, but eventually embraced as unique. Luke was the best man, and I was standing on Sam's side as well, rather than with the bridesmaids. Again, not traditional, but important to Sam. As we were leaving, Daniela caught my arm. "Emily, could I talk to you for a second?" I followed her to a quiet corner, curious what this last-minute conversation could be about. "I just wanted to say, I'm so happy you'll be part of our special day," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Family means everything to me, and I want you to know I consider you my sister now." "That's very sweet, Daniela." "Thank you." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "And I want you to know that I've made sure tomorrow will be absolutely perfect for Sam. Every detail has been handled with love." Something about her tone made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, but I smiled and thanked her again before rejoining my brothers and Dad for the drive home. That night, I barely slept, a nameless anxiety keeping me awake. By morning, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting, projecting my own issues onto Daniela's innocent comments. The church was beautiful, decorated with cascading white flowers and soft, golden light filtering through stained glass. Sam was in a side room with Luke and me, adjusting his tie for the 10th time, his hands slightly shaky. "You've got this," Luke assured him, straightening the already perfect tie. "Just focus on Daniela and tune everything else out." Sam nodded, taking a deep breath. "Right, focus on Daniela." There was a knock at the door, and the wedding coordinator poked her head in. "10 minutes, everyone. Dr. Harrison, could I borrow you for a moment? There's a seating issue we need your help with." I frowned. What seating issue could possibly require my input? But followed her into the hallway. "What's going on?" I asked. The coordinator looked uncomfortable. "There's a woman in the vestibule insisting she's the groom's mother. She's not on our list, but she's quite adamant." My stomach dropped. "What does she look like?" "Mid-60s, blonde hair, very well dressed. She has another family with her, a man and 2 teenage boys. Mom, and her new husband and stepsons. She is not supposed to be here," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Under no circumstances should she be allowed in." "Where's security?" "We don't typically have security for weddings," the coordinator said, looking alarmed. "The woman has an invitation, Dr. Harrison, a formal invitation with her name on it. An invitation, which meant only one person could have sent it. Daniela." The room seemed to tilt slightly as the realization hit me. Daniela had gone behind Sam's back and invited our mother to the wedding, despite his explicit refusal, despite knowing the pain and trauma it would cause. "I need to speak with the bride, immediately." The coordinator shook her head. "She's in final preparations. It's bad luck for—" "This is not about luck," I cut her off. "This is about preventing a disaster. Please, take me to her now." After a moment's hesitation, she led me to the bridal suite. Daniela was standing in the center of the room, resplendent in a dramatic ball gown, her bridesmaids fussing with her veil. "Emily!" she exclaimed, her surprise quickly masked with a bright smile. "Is everything okay?" I gestured to her bridesmaids. "Could we have the room, please?" The women looked to Daniela, who nodded, still smiling. "Of course. Emily probably has some last-minute sister advice for me." Once we were alone, I didn't waste time with pleasantries. You invited our mother. Her smile faltered only slightly. I thought it would be a nice surprise for Sam. Every boy should have his mother at his wedding. Nice surprise? I repeated, incredulous. Daniela, Sam specifically told you he did not want her here. He cut contact with her years ago because she's destructive and unstable. Daniela waved a dismissive hand. I know you three think your mother is some kind of monster, but I've spoken with her and she's absolutely lovely. A bit intense, maybe, but what mother isn't protective of her children? My blood ran cold. You've been speaking with her. For how long? Just a few months. I found her through some mutual connections and reached out. I thought it was important to form my own opinion rather than just accepting what you all say about her. I stared at her, speechless. Daniela hadn't just invited Mom to the wedding on a whim. She'd been cultivating a relationship with her behind Sam's back, deliberately undermining his boundaries and experiences. You need to tell her to leave, I said finally. Now, before Sam sees her. Daniela's expression hardened. I will do no such thing. She's already seated with my extended family. It would cause a scene to remove her now. There's going to be a scene regardless when Sam sees her. The only question is whether you want to control the narrative or let it explode publicly. You're overreacting, she said coldly. Sam will be surprised, yes, but once he sees how lovely his mother is now, how much she's changed. She hasn't changed, I interrupted. People like her don't change. They just find new targets and new tactics. Daniela turned back to the mirror, adjusting her veil. I've made my decision, Emily. I believe this is best for Sam, even if he doesn't see it yet. Sometimes we have to make difficult choices for the people we love. The condescension in her voice was the final straw. This woman truly believed she knew what was best for Sam better than he did himself, better than the siblings who had lived through the same trauma alongside him. I'm telling Sam, I said, turning toward the door. If you ruin this wedding, he'll never forgive you, Daniela called after me. I looked back at her, this beautiful, confident woman who had so thoroughly deceived my brother. If I don't tell him, he'll never forgive me, and rightly so. I hurried back to the room where Sam and Luke were waiting. The ceremony was due to start in just minutes. Sam was pacing now. His earlier nervousness escalated to visible anxiety. What's going on? Luke asked when he saw my face. You look like you've seen a ghost. In a way, I had, the ghost of our past, invited to haunt what should have been a day of pure joy. Sam, I said, my voice as gentle as I could make it. I need to tell you something, and it's going to be hard to hear. Sam's face paled as I told him about Mom's presence in the church. His hands, which had been fidgeting with his cufflinks, went completely still. She's here. Mom is here. His voice was barely above a whisper. Luke moved immediately to Sam's side, a hand on his shoulder. How is that possible? She wasn't invited. Daniela invited her, I said, the words hanging heavy in the air between us. She's been in contact with Mom for months behind Sam's back. Sam sank into the nearest chair, his knees seemingly unable to hold him any longer. She wouldn't do that. She knows how I feel about... He stopped, realization dawning on his face. She never believed me. All those times I told her about Mom, she thought I was exaggerating. I'm so sorry, Sam, I said, kneeling in front of him. I just found out. She has Mom seated with her extended family. Luke's jaw tightened in that familiar way it always did when he was holding back anger. What do you want to do, Sam? It's your call. Sam looked up at us. His eyes haunted in a way I hadn't seen since we were children. I can't do this. I can't marry someone who would betray me like this. Are you sure? I asked, not because I disagreed, but because I needed him to be certain. This is a big decision to make in just a few minutes. He nodded, resolve strengthening in his expression. I'm sure. If she did this, went behind my back on something so fundamental, what else would she do? This isn't just about Mom. It's about trust. Luke was already reaching for his phone. I'll call Dad. He can bring the car around to the side entrance. What about everyone out there? Sam gestured vaguely toward the sanctuary where 200 guests were waiting. What do we tell them? Nothing right now, I said firmly. Your safety comes first, physical and emotional. We get you out, then we deal with the fallout. A sharp knock at the door made us all jump. The wedding coordinator's voice came through. 5 minutes, everyone. Groomsmen to the altar, please. Tell her we need a few more minutes, Luke called back, his voice remarkably steady. I'm sorry, but we're on a strict timeline. The musicians are cued. The bride is ready. We need more time, I said more forcefully, moving to block the door in case she tried to enter. We heard her sigh on the other side. 2 minutes, then we really must begin. Luke finished his call with Dad. He'll be at the side door in 3 minutes. Coat check area. Sam stood up, his decision made. Let's go. We moved quickly through the back hallways of the church, navigating around flower arrangements and wedding staff. Luke led the way, his height and confident stride clearing a path. I kept a hand on Sam's arm, feeling the tremors running through him. As we rounded the corner to the coat check area, a familiar voice stopped us cold. Samuel, my precious boy. Mom stood there, looking elegant in a pale blue dress, her blonde hair perfectly styled. To anyone else, she would appear to be a perfectly normal, even sophisticated mother of the groom. But we knew better. We could see the calculated gleam in her eyes, the slight curl of satisfaction in her smile. Aren't you going to introduce me to your bride? She asked, taking a step towards Sam. Sam took an instinctive step back, bumping into me. I steadied him with a hand on his back. We're leaving, Luke said, his voice low and firm. Step aside, please. Mom's face transformed instantly, her pleasant expression melting into wounded outrage. Leaving? On your wedding day? Have you lost your mind? All these people are here. Because of you. Sam found his voice, though it shook slightly. I didn't invite you here. I didn't want you here. Your fiancé invited me, Mom said, her chin lifting defiantly. She understands the importance of family. Unlike you ungrateful children. Daniela had no right, Sam said, his voice growing stronger. She betrayed my trust. Mom's face hardened. So dramatic. Just like when you were little. Always exaggerating. Always making me out to be the villain. I felt Sam tense beside me and knew we needed to get him out before this escalated further. Dad's waiting, I murmured, nodding toward the side door just visible beyond where Mom was standing. As if on cue, the door opened, and Dad appeared. He assessed the situation immediately, his expression somber but determined. Elizabeth, he said, addressing Mom by name. Let the kids pass. Mom's attention snapped to Dad, her former husband, the man she had spent years vilifying to anyone who would listen. Richard, of course you're behind this, turning my children against me again. No one turned us against you, Luke said quietly. You did that all on your own. We moved forward as one, Luke slightly ahead, creating a human barrier between Sam and Mom. I kept my hand on Sam's back, feeling his shallow breaths. Mom made one last attempt, stepping into our path. If you leave now, Samuel, don't ever expect me to welcome you back. This is your last chance to be part of this family. Sam looked at her directly for the first time, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. I already have a family. It just doesn't include you. We brushed past her, hurrying to where Dad waited. As soon as we were outside, Sam gulped in the fresh air like a man who'd been drowning. Dad guided him to the waiting car, opening the door for him. What about Daniela? Dad asked as we piled in. Should someone tell her? I'll go, I volunteered. You three go on. I'll handle Daniela and meet you back at the apartment. Luke looked uncertain. You sure? I could stay. Go with Sam, I insisted. He needs you both right now. As they drove away, I steeled myself for the confrontation ahead. I found Daniela still in the bridal suite, now surrounded by her bridesmaids again, all of them checking the time with increasing anxiety. Emily, where's Sam? The wedding coordinator is having a meltdown, Daniela exclaimed. Could we have the room, please? I asked the bridesmaids again, my tone making it clear it wasn't a request. Once we were alone, I didn't soften the blow. Sam isn't coming. The wedding is off. Daniela stared at me in disbelief. What are you talking about? Of course he's coming. He's probably just nervous. He saw his mother. I cut her off. The mother you invited behind his back. The mother who abused him for years. He's gone, and he's not coming back. The color drained from Daniela's face. He can't just leave. There are 200 people out there. You should have thought of that before you betrayed his trust in the most fundamental way possible. Her shock quickly turned to anger. This is ridiculous. I was trying to help him heal his relationship with his mother. You three have this bizarre cult mentality about her. She's a perfectly lovely woman who just wants to be part of her son's life. You don't know the first thing about her, I said, keeping my voice level despite my rising anger. You chose to believe a stranger over the man you claim to love. That tells me everything I need to know about you. He'll come back, she said confidently. Once he calms down and realizes he's overreacting, he'll come back. I shook my head. No, he won't. Sam doesn't give his trust easily, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. You destroyed something precious today, Daniela. I hope it was worth it. What am I supposed to tell everyone? She demanded, gesturing toward the sanctuary where guests were still waiting. The truth, I suggested. That you made a catastrophic error in judgment, and the wedding has been called off. Or make up whatever story makes you feel better. It doesn't matter to us anymore. As I turned to leave, she called after me, her voice cracking. This isn't over. You can't just walk away from a wedding. What about all the money, the gifts, I closed the door on her protests, already pulling out my phone to text Luke that I was on my way. As I navigated the back hallways to avoid the growing murmurs of confused guests, I ran directly into the last person I wanted to see again. Mom. You're proud of yourself, aren't you? She hissed, blocking my path. Ruining your brother's wedding, turning him against a woman who loves him. Sam made his own decision based on Daniela's actions, I replied, trying to step around her. She moved to block me again. You always were the troublemaker, Emily. The instigator. I see nothing's changed. What I am is late, I said, finally managing to sidestep her. Goodbye, Mother. Her voice followed me down the hallway. This isn't over. Tell Samuel this isn't over. By the time I reached Sam's apartment, he was sitting on the couch, still in his wedding clothes minus the jacket and tie, staring blankly at the wall. Luke and Dad were in the kitchen, speaking in low voices, occasionally glancing worriedly at Sam. How is he? I whispered to Luke. In shock, I think, Luke replied. He hasn't said much since we got here. I went to sit beside Sam, taking his cold hand in mine. Hey. He looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed but dry. Did you talk to her? Yes. She didn't understand. I don't think she ever will. He nodded slowly. I loved her, Em. I really did. I know. But I can't be with someone who doesn't respect my boundaries, who doesn't believe me when I tell her something is harmful to me. His voice broke on the last word. I squeezed his hand. You made the right choice, Sam. As painful as it is. What happens now? It was such a simple question, but I didn't have a simple answer. What did happen now? Sam had just walked away from his wedding, his fiancée, the future he had planned. There would be practical consequences, financial, social, emotional, but those were concerns for tomorrow. Now, we take it 1 hour at a time, I said gently. You don't have to figure everything out today. Dad joined us, sitting on Sam's other side. Your place at my house is always ready. If you don't want to stay here with all the reminders, Sam nodded gratefully. Thanks, Dad. I think I'd like that. Just for a little while. The next few days were a blur of practical matters. Luke and I took turns going back to Sam and Daniela's apartment to collect his essential belongings while she was out. Dad contacted the wedding vendors to cancel what could be canceled and get refunds where possible. I fielded concerned calls from our friends who had been at the wedding, offering only that there had been a private matter that made the ceremony impossible. Daniela, predictably, didn't take the rejection well. She alternated between furious texts accusing Sam of humiliating her and tearful voicemails begging him to reconsider. When those got no response, she escalated to showing up at his workplace, creating such a scene that security had to escort her out. Mom, for her part, seemed to view the failed wedding as an opportunity to reinsert herself into our lives. She sent emails to all three of us, positioning herself as the wronged party, the loving mother who had been maligned and misunderstood. When those went unanswered, she took to social media, posting long, self-pitying screeds about ungrateful children and the pain of maternal rejection. A week after the non-wedding, the real trouble began. Daniela posted a lengthy, tear-filled video online, claiming that Sam had abandoned her at the altar because of his controlling siblings who poisoned him against her, and his own mother. She painted herself as the victim of our family cult that isolated Sam from anyone who tried to love him. The video went viral in our relatively small community. Sam's phone exploded with messages from acquaintances and colleagues, most expressing sympathy, but some questioning his character. Daniela's family and friends launched a coordinated campaign of harassment, sending nasty messages and even calling Sam's workplace to complain about his treatment of Daniela. "This is getting out of hand," Luke said during our nightly check-in call with Sam. "We need to do something to counter this narrative." "Like what?" Sam asked wearily. He'd lost weight in the past week, his face gaunt with stress and lack of sleep. "Get into a public mudslinging match with my ex-fiancé. That'll make me look great." "Not mudslinging," I said thoughtfully. "Just truth. A simple, factual statement about why the wedding was called off. No emotion, no accusations, just facts. The fact is, she invited Mom to my wedding behind my back after I explicitly told her not to," Sam said. "That's a pretty clear breach of trust." "That's all you need to say," Dad agreed. "One statement, then no more engagement with the drama." Sam nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll draft something tomorrow." But before he could, the situation escalated again. Daniela posted a follow-up video, this time with a bombshell announcement. She claimed to be pregnant with Sam's child. "That's impossible," Sam said when Luke called to warn him about the new video. "We were always careful, and we hadn't been one or intimate in weeks before the wedding. She was doing this saving myself thing for the last month to make it special on the wedding night. Regardless, she's making the claim," Luke replied grimly, "and people are believing her." The pregnancy announcement changed the dynamic completely. Now Sam wasn't just a jilted groom. He was being portrayed as a man who abandoned his pregnant fiancée. The harassment intensified, with people he barely knew reaching out to express their disappointment in him. "I need to address this directly," Sam decided after yet another call from a distant relative berating him for his supposed abandonment. "I can't let this lie stand." He posted a brief, dignified statement explaining that he had ended the engagement due to a serious breach of trust, that he wished Daniela well, but that any pregnancy claim was false given the timeline and their recent lack of physical intimacy. Daniela's response was swift and vicious. She accused Sam of calling her a liar and a slut, though he had done neither. She claimed he was trying to escape financial responsibility for his child. She even suggested he had been physically abusive, a claim so outlandish that even some of her supporters began to question her credibility. The online war continued for weeks, with Daniela making increasingly outrageous claims and Sam trying to maintain his dignity while defending himself from character assassination. Mom eagerly joined Daniela's side, providing more insider information about Sam's supposed history of instability and cruelty, all fabricated, of course, but presented with enough conviction to sway those who didn't know him well. "We need legal help," Dad said finally after Daniela's accusations escalated to include theft and fraud. "This has gone beyond social media drama. She's making claims that could damage Sam's career and reputation permanently." We contacted an attorney specializing in defamation and harassment, who advised Sam to cease all public responses and document everything. She sent cease and desist letters to both Daniela and Mom, warning of legal action if the false claims continued. The letters had an unexpected effect. Daniela suddenly went silent online, removing all her previous posts about Sam. 2 weeks later, we discovered why. She had posted a tearful miscarriage announcement, garnering tremendous sympathy and effectively removing the need to eventually provide evidence of a pregnancy. "She's playing this perfectly," I said bitterly after seeing the post. "Now Sam can't even push back without seeming like he's attacking a woman who's lost a child that never existed," Luke reminded me. "But no one can prove that," I pointed out. "And she knows it." Sam had retreated into himself during all of this, focusing on his work and spending his free time at Dad's lake house, away from the drama. He'd lost friends in the fallout, people who either believed Daniela's lies or simply found the situation too messy to navigate. His once busy social life had contracted to just family and a handful of loyal friends. Mom, meanwhile, had found a new target for her manipulation: Daniela herself. Recognizing a kindred spirit, or perhaps more accurately, a useful tool, Mom had taken Daniela under her wing, positioning herself as the supportive almost mother-in-law who understood Sam better than anyone. The two of them were spotted having lunch together regularly, their heads close in conspiratorial conversation. Mom introduced Daniela to her friends as my son's fiancée, as if the wedding had merely been postponed rather than called off entirely. Daniela, desperate for validation and alliance against us, eagerly embraced the role. "They deserve each other," Luke said when we saw the social media posts of them shopping together. "The two manipulative people who can't stand not getting their way." But their alliance was dangerous. Together, they had enough knowledge about Sam to cause real damage. and neither had any qualms about lying to serve their purposes. They showed up at his workplace together, creating such a disturbance that Sam's boss had to intervene. They had coincidentally appeared at restaurants where Sam was dining with colleagues. They sent joint emails to extended family members, spreading their version of events. 3 months after the non-wedding, their campaign took a more sinister turn. Mom claimed to have been diagnosed with a serious heart condition, one that might be fatal without surgery. She reached out to all 3 of us children, begging for reconciliation before it was too late. Daniela amplified the message, painting us as heartless for ignoring our dying mother's pleas. "Is she really sick?" Sam asked during our weekly family dinner at Dad's house, his fork pushing pasta around his plate without eating it. Dad sighed heavily. I called Alan. Alan was Mom's brother, the only member of her family we still had occasional contact with. He said she had some tests done, but there's nothing life-threatening, just normal age-related issues that she's dramatizing. "Of course," Luke muttered. "The deathbed manipulation, classic Mom." "It's working, though," I pointed out. "People are messaging me saying I should make peace with her, while there's still time." "Ignore them," Dad advised. "Anyone who truly knows the situation understands why you've had to keep your distance." But the pressure continued to mount. Mom's condition supposedly worsened. Daniela posted tearful videos about how cruel we were to deny a dying woman access to her children. Friends who had initially supported Sam began to waver, suggesting that perhaps, in light of Mom's health, some kind of reconciliation might be appropriate. "I'm not doing it," Sam said firmly, after yet another well-meaning friend suggested he consider visiting Mom in the hospital, where she had been admitted for observation of her supposed condition. "I spent years in therapy learning that I don't owe her access to my life just because she gave birth to me. I'm not throwing that away for a manipulation tactic." I was proud of him for that. Of the 3 of us, Sam had always struggled the most with guilt over cutting contact with Mom, perhaps because he had been her favorite for a time, and had experienced moments of genuine affection from her amidst the chaos. The hospital stay ended after 3 days with a miraculous recovery that Mom attributed to experimental medication. The immediate crisis averted, she and Daniela shifted tactics again, this time focusing on more targeted harassment. Daniela began dating one of Sam's former friends, a man named Tyler who had been at the almost wedding. Tyler had always had a bit of a crush on Daniela, and she weaponized that attraction, using him to gain more information about Sam's current life and activities. Mom, meanwhile, had taken to calling Dad repeatedly, ostensibly to discuss concerns about Sam, but really to try to manipulate her way back into all of our lives through the one person who still occasionally answered her calls. Dad, to his credit, kept these conversations brief and factual, refusing to be drawn into her drama. 6 months after the failed wedding, things finally began to settle into a new normal. Daniela and Mom still occasionally stirred up drama, but people had largely lost interest in the saga. Sam had moved into his own apartment again, a fresh start in a building across town from the one he had shared with Daniela. He had begun dating casually. Nothing serious, but a positive step toward healing. And then, just as we thought the worst was behind us, Daniela escalated once more. She filed for a restraining order against Sam, claiming he had been stalking and threatening her. The evidence she provided was flimsy at best. A few instances where they had happened to be at the same restaurant or store, which was inevitable in our relatively small city, and some text messages that had clearly been manipulated to appear threatening. The court granted a temporary order pending a hearing, meaning Sam had to stay at least 500 feet away from Daniela at all times. For a man who had been actively avoiding his ex-fiancée, this wasn't difficult in practice, but the public implication was devastating. Once again, Sam's character was being assassinated, this time with the apparent backing of the legal system. "This is beyond ridiculous," our attorney said as she reviewed the filing. "These texts are obviously edited. Look at the timestamps. They don't even make sequential sense. And this photo she claims shows Sam lurking outside her apartment. That's not even him. Will the judge see that?" Sam asked, his voice tired. He'd lost his usual optimism through this ordeal, becoming more cynical, more guarded. "I believe so," the attorney assured him. "We have plenty of evidence to refute her claims at the hearing. Your location data from your phone shows you were nowhere near her on the dates she claims, and we can prove these texts have been altered." The restraining order hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out, meaning Sam had to live under the cloud of suspicion until then. During that time, Mom made sure everyone in their social circle knew about the order, presenting it as proof that she and Daniela had been right all along about Sam's dangerous tendencies. The day before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Tyler, Daniela's new boyfriend, contacted Luke, asking to meet privately. Suspicious but curious, Luke agreed, suggesting a public cafe far from Daniela's usual haunts. Tyler arrived looking nervous, constantly checking over his shoulder as if afraid of being followed. "I need to tell you something," he said as soon as Luke sat down. "About Daniela and your mom." "What about them?" Luke asked cautiously. "The restraining order. It's fake." "I mean, the order is real, but the evidence isn't. Daniela made it all up, and your mom helped her. I've seen them planning it, editing those texts, staging photos." Luke stared at him. "Why are you telling me this now?" Tyler looked down, ashamed. "I thought I loved her, man. I thought Sam had treated her badly and she deserved better. But the things she's doing, the lies she's telling, it's not right. And your mom is even worse, constantly pushing Daniela to escalate, to cause more damage." "Do you have proof of any of this?" Luke asked, already reaching for his phone to text our attorney. Tyler nodded, pulling out his own phone. "I recorded them talking about it. And I have screenshots of the original texts before they were edited. I know it doesn't make up for me believing her in the first place, but I couldn't let Sam go into that hearing without the truth coming out. The recording was damning. Daniela and Mom could clearly be heard discussing how to make the texts appear threatening, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate the system, and planning their next moves if the restraining order was granted permanently. Mom's voice was particularly chilling as she suggested ways to make Sam lose his job, his home, his entire life. Luke immediately forwarded everything to our attorney, who was thrilled with the new evidence. "This changes everything," she said. "We're not just going to get the order dismissed now, we're going to counter with our own harassment claim. This is malicious prosecution." The hearing the next day was brief and decisive. Faced with irrefutable evidence of her deception, Daniela broke down on the stand, admitting that she had fabricated the evidence under Mom's guidance. The judge not only dismissed the restraining order, but also issued a stern warning to Daniela about the serious legal consequences of filing false reports. As we left the courthouse, Sam looked lighter than he had in months. "It's over," he said, almost in disbelief. "It's finally over." But we all knew it wasn't. Not really. Mom would find new ways to insert herself into our lives, new tactics to try to regain control. Daniela might retreat for now, but her humiliation in court would likely fuel further resentment and revenge fantasies. What had changed, though, was Sam's resolution. The experience had hardened something in him, burned away the last traces of guilt or uncertainty about cutting ties with toxic people. He stood straighter now, his boundaries firm and clear. "I'm thinking of moving," he told us over dinner that night. "Not just to a new apartment, to a new city, make a completely fresh start." Dad nodded, understanding. "I think that might be a good idea. Put some physical distance between you and all this drama." "Where are you thinking?" I asked. Sam smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes for the first time in ages. "I've been talking to that architectural firm in Portland, the one that specializes in sustainable design. They've been interested in me for a while." "Portland would suit you," Luke agreed. "All that rain and coffee and hipsters." We laughed together, the sound a little rusty but real. It felt like the first step toward healing, toward reclaiming the joy that Mom and Daniela had tried so hard to destroy. As we were leaving Dad's house that night, Sam pulled me aside. "I never thanked you properly," he said quietly, "for telling me about Mom being at the wedding, for giving me the chance to make my own decision instead of walking into a trap." I hugged him tightly. "You would have done the same for me." "Still," he insisted, "you saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life." I'll never forget that. 8 months after the wedding that wasn't, Sam moved to Portland. Luke and I helped him pack up his apartment, carefully ensuring no trace of his new address would be accessible to Mom or Daniela. Dad drove out with him, making a road trip adventure of the cross-country journey. The distance helped. Without Sam physically present, Daniela and Mom lost interest in their campaign against him. Daniela eventually moved to Florida with a new boyfriend, her social media shifting to beach photos and tropical cocktails instead of victim narratives. Mom found new targets for her manipulation, bouncing between family members who hadn't yet learned to establish firm boundaries. And Sam? He thrived. The new job challenged and excited him. He made new friends who knew nothing of his past drama. He even started dating again, more cautiously this time, more attuned to red flags. A year after the move, he met Rachel, a wildlife biologist with a quick laugh and thoughtful eyes. When he finally told her about Mom and Daniela, she listened without judgment, asking questions that showed genuine understanding of the trauma he had experienced. She gets it, he told me during one of our weekly video calls. Really gets it. Her dad was similar to Mom, not identical, but the same kind of manipulative narcissism. She went no contact with him years ago. So she understands the boundaries, I said, relieved. After Daniela, I had worried Sam might struggle to trust again. Completely. When I told her I don't have contact with my mother, she just nodded and said, "Good for you. That takes strength." No questioning. No, but she's your mother. Guilt trip. 2 years after the failed wedding, Sam proposed to Rachel during a hiking trip in the Cascade Mountains. This time, the engagement was kept private, shared only with immediate family and closest friends. The wedding would be small, just 20 people at a secluded lodge in the mountains. No chance of uninvited guests this time, Sam joked when he showed me the venue online. You have to hike the last mile to get there. I smiled, though the memory of that day still stung. Mom would never ruin her shoes for the opportunity to create drama. And Rachel has 2 very large brothers who know exactly why Mom isn't welcome, Sam added, just in case. The wedding was everything the first one should have been. Joyful, intimate, focused on the couple and their genuine love for each other. Luke stood as best man, I as best sister. Rachel had no attendance either, just her brothers walking her down the aisle. Dad beamed with pride as he watched his youngest son finally get the happy beginning he deserved. As Rachel and Sam spoke their vows, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. The pain of our childhood, the struggle to break free from Mom's toxic influence, the nightmare of Daniela's betrayal and subsequent campaign of harassment. All of it had shaped us, but none of it had broken us. We had survived. More than that, we had protected each other, stood by each other, helped each other heal. Our little family unit, Dad, Luke, Sam, and me, had formed an unbreakable bond forged in the fire of shared trauma. We sometimes joked about being a cult of 4, as Daniela had once accused, but the truth was simpler. We were just a family who had learned the hard way that love means protecting each other, even when, especially when, it's difficult. After the ceremony, as we celebrated under the stars, Dad raised his glass in a toast. To Sam and Rachel, he began, "May your life together be filled with joy, understanding, and peace. And to all of us, who have learned that family isn't about obligation or blood, it's about choice. Every day, we choose each other. Every day, we build this family with love and respect." We clinked glasses, the sound clear and bright in the mountain air. Sam caught my eye across the table and smiled. A real smile, unburdened by the shadows of the past. In that moment, I knew we had truly won. Mom had tried to control us. Daniela had tried to destroy Sam, but in the end, love had proven stronger than their malice. We were not just survivors, but thrivers, living proof that it's possible to break free from toxic cycles and build something beautiful in their place. The road hadn't been easy, and I knew there would be more challenges ahead. Mom would likely make periodic attempts to re-enter our lives, especially if major life events like children came along. Daniela might resurface with new accusations or drama when her current relationship inevitably imploded. But we were prepared now. Our boundaries solid, our support system unshakable. Sam's wedding day had become a symbol of our collective resilience. Not the first one, with its betrayal and pain, but this one, bathed in authentic joy and hard-won wisdom. His journey from the man who ran away from his own wedding to the man confidently embracing a new beginning was a testament to the power of trust, truth, and second chances. 4 years have passed since Sam and Rachel's mountain wedding. Our lives have evolved in beautiful ways, our small, fierce family growing stronger with time. Sam and Rachel welcomed twins last year, James and Catherine. Their Portland home radiates warmth and laughter. Sam became a partner at his architectural firm, the shadows in his eyes replaced by the contented exhaustion of new parenthood. Luke married David, a brilliant engineer who understands our boundaries without explanation. They adopted a rescue dog they jokingly call the closest thing to a grandchild Dad's getting from us, though they're exploring adoption options. I've built a successful psychology practice specializing in family trauma. Each client who establishes healthy boundaries feels like a personal victory. Dad remains our emotional anchor, semi-retired but still active, still wise, still steady. As for Mom and Daniela, life delivered its own justice. Mom suffered a minor stroke 2 years ago. Her husband left shortly after Payo, unwilling to be a caregiver. Her stepchildren offered minimal support. For the first time, she faced the consequences of burning bridges. We sent flowers but maintained our distance. Daniela's Florida relationship ended dramatically. She returned briefly to our city, but her reputation preceded her. After her restraining order fabrication became public knowledge, few trusted her. She eventually moved to California, occasionally posting cryptic messages seemingly directed at Sam, though he never acknowledges them. At the twins' first birthday, I watched my family with profound gratitude. Dad helped with the cake, Luke and David entertained the babies, and Sam grilled, occasionally glancing around with quiet contentment. "We made it," I said, joining him. He nodded, understanding without explanation. Not just surviving, but thriving. Walking away from that wedding was the bravest thing I've ever seen. Sam smiled genuinely. It wasn't brave, it was survival. The brave part was starting over, trusting again. As we sang to the twins, I looked around our circle. Not large, but solid, genuine, and safe. This is what family should be, I thought. Not perfect, but honest. Not bound by obligation, but by choice. Later, Rachel showed me a letter from Mom, addressed to the twins, claiming grandmotherly rights. "I didn't show Sam," she said quietly. "Should I have?" I shook my head. "You protected him. That's what we do for each other." She nodded, tearing the letter before discarding it. Family protecting family. That's the true ending to our story. Not dramatic confrontations or tearful reconciliations, but quiet, consistent choices to protect each other's peace. Sam ran from his wedding that day, but what he was really running toward was this: a life built on trust, truth, and boundaries strong enough to keep the darkness at bay. Some people will never understand why we cut ties with our mother. They'll say, "But family is everything," without recognizing that sometimes family is what you build from the ashes of what was meant to destroy you.